1934, 36. And what it is, you've got African American Joe Louis versus white German Max Schmeling. It's on the radio. People that work around the farm want to hear it, but they can't afford a radio. Carters have a radio, but they don't have electricity. They don't get electricity until Franklin Roosevelt gets polio. He goes down to Warm Springs, Georgia, which is kind of about halfway between here and Plains. And he sees how expensive electricity is in rural Georgia. That leads to rural electrification that gets the Carters' electricity. It's one of those strange coincidences that Franklin Roosevelt getting polio ends up getting the Carters' electricity. What the Carters do is they put their radio, like that one, in the window in the living room. Living room's on the front and the left. They put it on a side window. It goes to work on the farm, gather under that tree that's just poking out the side. And the thing Carter remembers is that when Joe Louis wins, everybody's quiet. There's no cheering. One gentleman goes up to Carter's dad and says, "Thank you, Mr. Carter." And then they go home, and that's when the celebration breaks out. And Carter is like 11 or 12. He understands that they didn't feel comfortable cheering for the man they wanted outside the boss's house, knowing he's a segregationist. And that spurred him on for human rights. In fact, when Earl was at home, as I say, he's a segregationist, and people like Bishop Johnson. Bishop Johnson is the head of the AME churches in that area. He is a very important man. He's a friend of Earl's. But when he would want to come over and talk to Earl, he would drive up in the driveway, honk the horn, and Earl would come out because he wasn't allowed in the front door, despite how important a gentleman he was. Miss Lillian, on the other hand, if she wanted to invite somebody in, regardless of their color or religion or whatever, she would. And Earl would just find someplace else on the farm to go. He didn't want to fight with Miss Lillian. Now, while I say that his dad is a segregationist, it's a little more complicated than that, because his dad also said, spend a lot of time with this couple. The gentleman with the beard is Jack Clark. He helps run the farm for the Carters. His wife, Rachel, Carter thinks of as his second mother. Whenever his parents are out of town, he stays with Jack and Rachel, kind of on a ticking bed like this. And he used to love to go fishing with Rachel. They would talk about how you treat people, they talk about life, that sort of thing. He learned a lot from Rachel. In fact, he said of the 5 people who influenced his life the most, other than his family, only 2 of them are white. This lady is one of them. Julia Coleman is his school teacher. One of the things she does is encourage him to read. They love to read. They would read at the dinner table rather than talk. She had a program called Readers Make Leaders. One summer he read 26 books. He loves to read. She also taught him something that I've heard him repeat a number of times. We must adjust to changing times and still hold to unchanging principles. He says that often. One of the things that's interesting to me is we have his 6th grade report card here. 6th grade. He makes A's in just about everything, right? He's pretty smart.